Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I am your host, Rudo, joined as always by AJ Haefele, back for our third installment of a preview look at the Avs offseason free agency potential trade targets. This time talking about the most enigmatic position in the NHL, the goaltending position. This show probably going to pace a little bit differently than our other ones. There are reasonable, unrestricted free agents to chase at both forward and defense. It's non-zero. There is a chance that a quality goaltender could make it to free agency, but the only one I'm really considering, let's just start here. The only one I would consider seriously pursuing if I'm the Avalanche is Robin Lehner.
Okay.
And of the free agents.
No interest in soon-to-be Conn Smythe winner Anton Khudobin?
No interest in what would be a 35-year-old Anton Khudobin, who the Avs, let's not forget, completely lit up in the second round. But it is true. If he plays like he did against Vegas, he could win himself some hardware in the finals. But no, personally, I have no interest. With enough coercion, I might be talked into Jacob Markstrom, but I think you and I both agree it's pretty darn unlikely he actually makes it to free agency.
Yeah, I just feel like if Vancouver is serious, I mean, obviously, Thatcher Demko was great.
Yep.
Right? Like, did an awesome job in those last two games, but the rest of Thatcher Demko's career has been pretty underwhelming so far. So,
are you going to bet your future on 2 hockey games of performance?
Right. Is that Thatcher Demko living up to his potential, or Thatcher Demko just getting hot for 2 games?
That's the $1 million question.
You know, it's really, I guess 3 games, probably more fair. Not that changes the point. Vancouver, I don't have faith that Markstrom gets to market, so I don't think we'll talk too much about it.
Same. It's an interesting thought if we're hitting free agency and he's still not signed, but it's hard to operate under him actually making it there.
Yeah.
Leonard, kind of the same story, although it's not as dead set as it looked like it was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And Leonard also the better goaltender of the two, I would say, by a pretty good margin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think he's had 3 strong years in a row now. Leonard has
pretty much since he got his head figured out and some of his demons handled. He's been,
I guess, 2 strong years because the 1 year in New York, and then I'll say 3 of the last 4, just because you look at the guy's career. He had 1 mediocre down year in Buffalo with that .908 save percentage, but the rest of the time there he was solid behind some bad teams.
920 there, 924 in limited use. Yeah, I mean that's pretty good.
He's been solid, and I was always confused why they were in such a hurry to move on from him. But that's Buffalo, right? Like they get rid of guys and they go on to succeed elsewhere because everything in Buffalo sucks right now. It's just a toxic place where it's very hard to succeed.
Yep, they seem to make the wrong decision at every turn somehow. So
yeah, I mean, outside of that Eric Stahl trade today, I mean that was good for them.
Yeah, a bit of thievery there, getting Eric Stahl 1-for-1 for Marcus Johansson.
Totally did not make sense, but from a Minnesota perspective, but whatever. Point being, Robin Lehner, good. Robin Lehner gets to market, you have to make the phone call.
Yep. If you're not talking to him, you're failing as a GM.
Yeah, you're doing a disservice to your own stated philosophy of we're going after a cup right now.
Yep. But
best goaltender comes on the market, and that guy's better than the guy that you have. I mean, come on.
it's going to be the same conversation a little bit as a Pietrangelo and as a Hall, where maybe some team comes in and says, all right, Leonard, we'll give you $8.5, $9 million for the next 8 years. And the Avs go, okay, well, have fun with that.
Yeah, but for sure.
If you're not at least giving yourself an opportunity, if he's interested in coming to the Avs, maybe you can make something work. But it's not.
Probability. Where would you draw the line on a deal term wise with the guy with Leonard specifically? Just because he is only 28. This is not a guy that's 32 years old or whatever.
Yeah, I'm way more worried about dollar value than I am length when it comes to Leonard, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So
where's your line?
I'd like, even if the Avs wanted to give him 6 years, I'd be pretty comfortable with it.
Okay.
That would take him to 34. The dollar value, six and a half. Okay. Like, if it was like you get him for sure at 7 and someone else is offering 6.5, maybe.
It would depend on who the someone else is.
Right, exactly. If like Dallas is trying to pick him up or St. Louis or somewhere.
If it's one of your like direct, like if it's him going back to Vegas or coming to Colorado, I mean, like that's one of the teams that you're looking at as a direct competitor to you in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that would change the math for me a little bit, but I would draw the line at 5 years and $6 million.
Right,
and I would. That's not my hard line. Like, I would move a little bit depending, but
you make it work if it's a realistic thing.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
If you're talking over $7 million for a goaltender, that's it's just sketchy waters, man. You've seen a million contracts like that just burn teams down.
I mean, at that point, it's like, would you rather roll the dice with Grubauer again and give that $7 million to Taylor Hall?
Right.
And then, the extra $2 million it'll take to get him, but
this is a conversation we'll talk a little bit more about later.
My question at that point, the question becomes: is the difference between Leonard and Grubauer larger or smaller than the difference between Taylor Hall and Nemesnikov?
Right, and
because that's
the problem with trying to quantify that as goalies are voodoo, and at any given time, a goalie can just decide to play out of his mind for a couple months and win you a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. And even the best goalies in the NHL randomly have down years that make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just they didn't have it that year, and they'll go on to bounce back a lot of the time. But that year, you're paying a dude $7 million to be a subpar goaltender, and it looks awful.
Yeah.
So it's just so hard with the goalie free agent market. You have to, as you put it on yesterday's show, be very careful when it comes to the free agent market.
Yeah. And that's why you and I are looking at this market and we say, hey, without seriously considering the possibility of Markstrom, because we don't think he'll make it to market. And the same is true of Leonard.
Yeah.
We're not looking at this market and saying, sure, we like that guy. Hey, Jimmy Howard, 2-23 last year with a 4.2 GAA and an 883 save percentage.
Come on down.
Sign me up. Yeah, no, I'm good. If they had not already re-upped Francouz, I would have I'm serious about this. I would have serious backup interest in a guy like Corey Crawford.
That's kind of the take, right? There's a bunch of dudes who are established, but don't really seem like what they used to be. Braden Holtby, a Corey Crawford. If you're talking about a backup, you can even get into the conversation of someone like a Cam Talbot.
Yeah, who started that series, but we saw why. Once again, we saw why he's not considered it's not a guy you're going to win 4 playoff series with. Like, that's a guy that can spell your starter and can come in and play for you and be decent, but it's just not a guy anybody's going to win 4 rounds with.
Yep.
Exactly. And the Braden Holtby conversation is one where, just look at his career. spectacular first half of his career. I mean, spectacular. Guy was incredible for years. The last 3 seasons,
not so hot. So,
the best you could say is he's been average, and that includes that third year where he took the job, where he had lost the job going into the playoffs to Grubauer.
Yep.
And then Grubauer had that tough first 2 games against Columbus. Holtby goes back in, has a great playoff. They go on to win the cup. But it's 3 years in a row. 3 regular seasons in a row. And you're talking about 150 games here. And the best you could say is that he's been average.
And the playoff performance has dipped in the last 2 years as well. It's not like all of a sudden he's a playoff performer. It's just his game on the whole has regressed.
Right. And like at just 30 years old, somebody's going to sign him, right? Somebody is going to sign him, and they're going to give him real money and real term, and they're just going to roll the dice. I mean, somebody's going to give him a meaningful contract, and it's legitimately been 3 years since he had a quality regular season.
Yep. The
guy, you're hoping and praying like crazy. Like it's the Hail Mary of Hail Marys, you know? And like maybe a team that has nothing to lose could justify that. Like maybe Detroit's like, we'll splash some cash. You know, they've got a ton of money in cap space. They don't really have a whole lot that they need to keep around.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe they go out and they're like, we know that this is not a great investment, but this answers the question of who's going to play that position for the next 5 years. And, you know, maybe we turn things around in year 3 of that deal and he's still good, or, you know, whatever. Like,
you take that guy and you don't think about that position until your team gets good, and then you can address it basically.
Yeah. Like that's okay. Like I can see maybe that happening, but beyond that, like, what is San Jose going to try and do something? You know, like,
I mean, Martin Jones hasn't exactly worked out for him, but
right. And they've got to figure out what to do with that contract first.
That's true. Like, that's true.
You look around the league and it's like, okay, the teams that need a goaltender who are in position to actually
push with one. Yeah.
Yeah. To actually like go and sign one. It's like, okay, well, does Carolina have the money? You know, like, is Carolina going to take that chance? Both Reimer and Mrazek are coming into the last year of their deal. They're spending $1 billion on their defense. They've got big ELC, post ELC deals coming up for Svechnikov and Netchis.
And
those are on the way. Dougie Hamilton's going into the last year of his deal. Like,
it's kind of the crux of the issue for all of these teams is, in most cases, do they have the money right now? The answer is no. Are they willing to make room for a guy that you're making a bet in free agency on? And for teams that are looking to become contenders or push to that next level, that's a really big commitment that could, you know what, maybe it works, but it's also pretty darn high risk. If it doesn't work out, you're causing massive problems to your team's cup window.
Yeah, you know, like, not knowing what the hell they're doing right now. You know, maybe Minnesota's a team that tries to go and get him.
Yeah.
You know, they're going into the last year of Dubnik's deal. Maybe they just buy that out and they go and they give Holtby that deal and they, you know, hey, we'll see if this works. Like, that's a team that would make sense for them to go and get him as one that sort of continues to think that it's like kind of contending or not, but you know, I know this isn't really Avs related, but that's because we're looking at it like, no, yeah. We're not gonna do that,
because unless something weird happens.
Who was the last UFA who was a good decision? How about Lehner 2 years in a row?
Yep. Went to UFA.
How about, Varley's first year in New York has gone pretty okay, hasn't it?
That's true. There are always...
Like, I know everybody's burned by the Bobrovsky thing, which was the single most predictable outcome imaginable. But, like, some of these UFA deals for goaltenders have been fine.
There's almost always goalies in UFA that you can get value on, but you're flirting with poison, right? You don't know which one's going to blow up in your face necessarily.
Yeah, you don't know where you're going to step on the Bobrovsky landmine.
Yep. So we can take our first period break there, as it is time to acknowledge Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR, with 8 of them on tap down at the DNVR bar. Or if you can't make it to the bar, you can always get it delivered to your house with an app like Drizzly, or go to your local liquor store. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find whichever type of beer from them is your favorite. I promise you they have a beer that everybody will like. You just got to find the right one for you, whether it be the Avalanche Amber, the Hop Peak IPA, the Agave Wheat, the Strawberry Sky, dozens of other ones as well. Look them up, find one, and give it a try. And, of course, our primary sponsor for this podcast, DraftKings Sportsbook. With football back on the field, they have all sorts of crazy bets going on over there, whether it be prop bets, game bets, covering the spread, under, over, you name it. You can bet on just about anything in football. Turns out betting against Mike Gostkowski kicking field goals, well, Steven Gostkowski?
Yeah.
Gostkowski, yeah. Kicking field goals is bet against him, apparently, unless it's crunch time. But you want to bet on that and you haven't opened up an account yet, now is the time to do it, because DraftKings Sportsbook is offering all new users a chance to earn $100 on a $1 bet. Bet on any team, not just football, but baseball, hockey, basketball, to win a game. And if they win, your $1 bet turns into a cool $100 for you. Don't pass this offer up. Jump on it today. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to make sure you get in on the offer. Again, pick any team to win during week 2 of the football season. Bet $1 on them and win $100 for yourself. That's $1 for a Benjamin Franklin, ladies and gentlemen, with promo code DNVR. Limited time only. See DraftKingsSportsbook.com. DraftKings.com/sportsbook. I mess that up every time. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings Sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings. So we've established, for the most part, outside of someone unexpectedly actually making it to free agency.
Yeah,
it's not great.
If Markstrom got there, I'd have the conversation.
Sure.
Totally open to it.
You do. You have the conversation. If for nothing else, it's interest in a guy that costs you nothing but money.
Right. Which is one of the assets that this is maybe the last year they have that as an actual asset.
Yep.
Cap space. This is the last year where cap space is probably a meaningful asset for them without them having to make multiple moves to clear it out.
Right.
So that's why free agency is interesting.
There you go. Well, end the show right there. Show done. But if you look outside that realm, or actually, let's back up. Let's start here. If the Avs are looking to improve at the goaltender position, they can't really be looking at a Corey Crawford, a Braden Holtby to be a backup for them. They need to go out and acquire a legitimate starting goaltender that is better than what they have now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that needs to be made pretty clear, because you can throw any name on the pile to be a backup, and in some cases maybe even a tandem guy, but how are you really helping yourself if you're the Avs by doing that?
Yeah, like the Avs had a perfectly fine backup last year in Francouz. That's not an area that needs addressing.
Yep.
Like, let's be real. Like, it's just not. It's not one of those areas that you have to hit. If you're gonna go and you're gonna try and improve upon Grubauer, you and I both think like Grubauer is like a mid-level starter.
He's an NHL starter. Is he a high-end one? Yeah.
That means there's only like 15 dudes out there who you're going to say are better, right? Like 15-ish who are better. And some of those guys, like when Grubauer's playing well, that number might be more like 6 or 7. So it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to improve upon Philip Grubauer in net. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do it, this isn't where you're messing around with Matt Murray. Like rolling the dice on him and hoping that he ends up being for real and that he's 26, and that's all good and well. You let Edmonton make that mistake, right? You let Calgary go and do that. Maybe, and hey, maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it works out great, and suddenly that guy's glove hand is not made of stone. Maybe. We'll see. But there's enough significant doubt there that it doesn't seem like the prudent thing to do. Like, it just doesn't. And then there are the guys that are entrenched on teams who are signed and have absolutely no reason whatsoever to move them. You know, that's where you're looking at Andrei Vasilevsky. That's where you're looking at the John Gibson, to be honest with you.
The reality is there's no real way he's moving. Yeah.
Right. That guy's not going anywhere, you know? Jordan Binnington, that guy's not going anywhere. Like those teams have decided those are their horses. They're gonna roll with those cats.
You know, the old adage, you can't win a race on the first lap, but you can lose it.
Sure.
That's how I feel about acquiring goaltenders. You can acquire a great goaltender, but that doesn't guarantee you a cup-winning performance. If you acquire a poor goaltender, it's probably going to prevent you from winning a Stanley Cup. Just ask San Jose about Martin Jones.
Yeah. I don't think Grubauer's the reason that the Avs are home right now, because he didn't get the chance to play in that series, and you can't blame him for a non-contact injury. Like, what are you going to do? What did the guy do wrong? Stop the puck? You know, like at the same time, like you're always trying to improve. And if you think that you have an opportunity to improve, then great. You do that. When you're looking around, there's really, to me, there's one realistic trade option that I think you could say is an improvement, and even that is a roll of the dice. And it's Darcy Kuemper.
Okay. Should we start with Darcy Kuemper, or do you want to go down the list a little bit?
Yeah, let's start with him, because Arizona is looking to shed cap. They're trying to get rid of some money. They have nothing in terms of draft capital. Not that the Avs are so flush with it, but Darcy Kuemper has been outrageously good in Arizona the last 2 seasons. Now, some concerns, obviously. Last year he played just 29 games. It's a bit of a concern. 55 the year before that, though, and both of them he was very, very, very good. And I'm not super here for but he was playing behind a really defensive team, because like if you go and you look at how like Arizona plays like they play like a low event style, they just don't play it very well. Like that's not a good team in front of him.
We watched the Avs cave that team in repeatedly. So here's last time we talked about Kuemper, I had some hesitations about it.
I do too. I mean, this is still Darcy Kuemper here.
The thing is, today I think I've come around to it a little bit more under the major idea that the Avs hold on to Philip Grubauer. Yeah.
So the idea here would be that you'd have to package up your 21st or the 24th pick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you'd have to send them something. Like you can't just trade for Darcy Kuemper and then have 3 freaking goaltenders. You got to get rid of one of them. Francouz makes the most sense because they're trying to clear out space. They've still got Antti Ranta. They can go ahead and have Pavel Francouz. And hey, maybe Francouz realizes, he really is a starter when he's healthy. He would get a chance there. And so you package up a first round pick, you package up Francouz, and you trade him for Kuemper. You keep Grubauer though. You hedge your bet.
Yep, 100%.
You have Grubauer under contract for another year. Like, you hedge your bet. Also, Aiden Hill is their third goaltender. If they're willing to roll with Aiden Hill seriously as their backup, like, good for them. Like, that, you take your chances. But Colorado's got to have to move Francouz somewhere anyway. So if he's not going back to Arizona in a Kuemper deal, he's going somewhere. That's just going to be the reality of it. The guy's going somewhere. So,
yeah, I mean,
fine.
If you do that hedge, why it looks so good is if Kuemper continues to be the guy he's been for the last 2 years, great. You have an excellent starter, and you have Philip Grubauer, arguably an NHL starter, as your backup.
$800,000 on one-way deals for like a third goaltender is totally normal.
Those dudes get waived every single year.
Yeah, that's extremely common. Like, that's not too worried about that. If it was like 1.5 or whatever, then that's we want that guy in the NHL money. But 800K is not.
If you're paying a goalie less
commitment to that,
basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a commitment to playing that guy in the NHL. And right now they've got 3 goaltenders. They still have Antti Ranta and Darcy Kuemper in front of him. So until they start moving guys out, like Aiden Hill is just not. It's not doing anything for me. Maybe they want to give him that shot. That we'll see. But again, if that's how they want to do it, fine. Then Francouz has to go somewhere else. Point being, Darcy Kuemper and Philip Grubauer instantly make them better. And you wouldn't be able to keep Frankie in Loveland because you would waive him and somebody would claim him.
That dude, yeah, guaranteed.
Somebody would take him. 2 years at $2 million on his deal after the season that he had. There's just too much of a need for goaltenders. He would get claimed. So that's why I'm saying trade him before you lose him for free.
Yep. That's the crux of this conversation for the Avs, is if they do want to acquire a goalie, they have to get rid of one. And you have to feel better about it if it's Francouz going the other way for the Avs.
Again, you're hedging your bets. You're trying to win a Stanley Cup here. And if that means that, hey, if Kuemper lives up to it and he goes out there and he has a Vezina caliber season, you're feeling great pretty much regardless of what Philip Grubauer does.
Yep.
You feel like you've accomplished your goal. You have your guy in the postseason. And then you go and you win a Stanley Cup, right? Easy. Hockey is easy. If it doesn't work out, then you have Philip Grubauer to hedge your bets. And then either you're overpaying, you're maybe re-signing Grubauer,
or you're
letting Kuemper go, or you make another move and you reassess in the offseason. Like,
yep,
you have the flexibility to do whatever, because the Kuemper deal is only 2 years. He's only signed for 2 years. So if he goes out and he plays great, you're getting super high level goaltending. You're paying him a decent amount of money, and you're totally happy. Like, you win. That's great. Things worked out.
And the other side of this is, even if Kuemper doesn't live up to the hype, he's been a perfectly quality backup for his entire career before popping off here in Arizona.
Right. And then, are you thrilled about giving up a first round pick to then turn around and have that be your backup goaltender when you already had a backup goaltender? Absolutely not.
It's pretty safe to say the trade feels bad, but you're not ending up with that contract being essentially dead money and that dude not even playing for you.
Right. Like, it has ways of being salvageable and not being a complete train wreck. It could be a complete train wreck if he just totally falls apart. And it turns out that Arizona's voodoo, I guess, is the only thing that's keeping him that made him good in the first place. I don't know. We'll see. But that's a dude that hey, take a chance. He's 30 years old. He's playing the best hockey he's ever played in his career. It's only a 2-year deal. You still have Philip Grubauer. Okay. Like, that's a situation that I could see.
Yeah. I'm cool with it. You have to see exactly what the cost for Kuemper ends up being. If there is a real trade market for him, maybe someone offers an astronomical amount and there's a line there. Right. I don't know where exactly it is, but there's a line there.
I'm not, if I'm offering them a first round pick for Darcy Kuemper, that's my line.
Yeah. Hard line on that.
Like, I offer Kuemper and Francouz. If they don't want Francouz, then I'm offering Francouz elsewhere, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Assuming I get Kuemper. Like, I'm not adding in a bunch of extra pieces. I'm not adding in all this other stuff. Like, I'm willing to give you the 24th overall pick for Darcy Kuemper. You either like that or you don't. This isn't the Corey Schneider deal where he was like 25 years old or whatever when that deal was made, and he was the goalie for the next half decade. You're talking about getting a guy that your hope is better than for the next 2 years. It's a little short-sighted, and it's definitely expensive, but you're feeling a little heat. You want to win during the next 3 years with McKinnon still on this contract. That doesn't mean they need to go super duper all in and give everything up at every turn. But if you're trying to make it happen, then you're trying to make it happen.
Okay.
So, yeah. That's one of those trade targets where, hey, we're talking about it. Okay, great. Other ones around the league, obviously, Lehner signs Marc-Andre Fleury,
which we are going to get into in our third segment here. First, we have a new sponsor, Chevalier Mortgage. Mike and Virginia Chevalier are not only diehard Broncos fans and proud CSU alums, go Rams, but they have supported DNVR for a long time as members of the site. They are a husband and wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it is vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your short-term and long-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. Visit them at dnvrmortgage.com and get set up with a free consultation to discuss all of your options. You can also call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. So, Marc-Andre Fleury. A little bit older, certainly has the track record. This dude has won 3 Stanley Cups, even if he was sitting on the bench for 2 of them.
Sort of.
He played to the playoffs, but the actual win.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, look, there's some risk with any of these guys. Fleury is an interesting one because we saw Robin Lehner just straight up take the job from him this year.
Yeah, Lehner was required to give him depth and ended up just took the gig.
Yep. Ended up going with Vegas to the conference finals where they fell short. But Fleury does have 2 years remaining on a $7 million deal at age 35. We've already established a $7 million deal, really not that big of a deal for the Avs in the coming season.
Yeah, Vegas would still have to retain something. $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever. Like, they would still have to retain something. I'm not taking on all 7 of that unless it's one of those fake draft picks. Like what Nick Bukestad just got traded for, or what Jerome McKinley got traded for back in the day, where it's like, all right, so we'll give you the 7th round, or say, hey, we'll give you this 3rd round pick for Marc-Andre Fleury under the conditions that he orders pineapple pizza twice a week, every single week for the next 2 years. Plus, and then you come up with 4 other absurd conditions.
Fleury outscores Pierre-Edouard Bellemare.
Yeah, right. He's got to have at least 10 points next year. Like, he needs to at least have 50 penalty minutes, and then you'll get the pick. Like, that's the only way that you're like that I would do something like that.
Yeah.
With Fleury, it's just like the interest is his career has always been kind of up and down. At his age, you don't rely on the up. Like
Yep.
and at $7 million, even if they retain $2 million, at $5 million, you're still like, the guy's double the price of Francouz, and is he any better than him at this point? Is there any confidence that he would be significantly better than Francouz?
I would say no, but if you're making this move, you're betting on his consistency. You're betting on you're not going to get that month lull in December and January where neither of your goaltenders can make a save.
Okay. I'm super. You want to know what's going to be great about this next regular season starting in mid-January? We skipped that
right over the lull.
Blow right through it. And then when it happens in mid-April,
and everyone freaks out about it.
Everybody will all be like, well, I guess this would have been December, huh? Yeah.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, this would have been that December, January lull. All right. I guess this is just on time. Or it just never happens, and maybe December is just the cursed month or something. I don't know. Point is like you're just trying to get consistency out of him. That's with Fleury, you're not the extreme highs and lows, but you'll take 9-10 every single night.
It would also I'm curious. We definitely don't have this answer on hand, and I'm sure we probably can't even look it up. But fun fact, if the Avs acquired Fleury, they would then have a first overall pick at forward, at defense, and at goaltender. I'm curious if any team has ever had that before. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but mostly because very, very few goaltenders get picked first overall.
I think only 2, right? It's just been DiPietro and Fleury.
I think that's correct. I can't think of any other. Like even Price
probably
went 5th,
not,
I think.
Yeah, Price went 5th. There have been some top 5, top 10 guys, but I don't. Yeah, that's a fun fact, sir.
Sometimes I got some fun ones, but
that rabbit hole we went into last night was
that was
how
wild.
Crazy was that? Came all the way back to Jared Bender. That was so wild. Anyway. Since nobody has any idea what we're talking about, except 30 other people on the planet.
Getting back on track, Fleury, look, I see some people talking about Henrik Lundqvist in the chat. Take Fleury 10 times out of 10 over Henrik Lundqvist. That dude is done.
I think he's done. Like, not even ability-wise. Like, I think he's just emotionally, like...
exhausted with it, yep.
Yeah, the 1948 draft is not the modern draft era, so I guess,
Yeah, do first overall picks even count from then? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Hank is just finished. Like,
yeah,
I think he's just like, okay, I'm good.
I've had my
check in the mail.
Yeah.
I guess they would just direct deposit it, wouldn't it? I assume the Rangers are in the 21st century.
Probably. You could probably request an actual check if you wanted.
You totally can. You don't have to direct deposit. I did it to one of my old employers, and it drove them crazy.
Are there any other realistic options? Is there any smoke to Tuukka Rask in the final year of his contract, something like that?
I'm sure because they're getting set to lose Krug in free agency. Krejci's a free agent next year. Rask is at the end of the line. Halak has been fine for them. Like I'm sure there's smoke to them looking around. But I don't know if they would actually do anything.
it. Yeah, fair. Down the list, Gibson obviously not going anywhere. Hellebuck obviously not going anywhere. Nobody wants anything to do with a guy like Corey Schneider. The next guy on the list is Frederik Andersen from Toronto.
Yeah, Andersen. See, Demko, you're rolling. Demko, you're having the same conversation about with Francouz. Is this guy even any good?
Yep.
Like, Demko doesn't answer any questions. It just changes the name of the question being of this. It changes the name of the same question you're already asking. There's I'm not messing with that. And look, draft wise, if they're in a position to come anywhere near Askarov, of course.
Here's the thing about Askarov, though. Even if you want to get him in your system, you want to draft him, you're still talking about, if he's a prodigy, you're talking about like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
and that would be great, but then he's running right into the exact timeline that you already have Annunen on.
Yep.
And like, hey, if that's great, like if that works out, great. So you trade back, you take Drew Comesso. 4 years. We'll see you in 4 years. Like the draft would be like going and getting Askarov would be awesome. That'd be awesome. I'm all about it, but that's not winning you a cup next year, 2 years. Like it's just not.
That's realistically a guy you're talking about on McKinnon's next contract.
Yeah, like that's a. We'll talk about Askarov plenty when we actually get into the draft stuff. Which, P.S.
It's coming.
Sort of tomorrow.
Yeah, we could kind of kick it off, sort of.
Sort of. We'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow, but it's mostly going to be just talking about Bowen Byram and how great he is. But yeah, Askarov would just take time. Like that's a guy that he probably isn't coming over until he's 21 or 22. And then he's probably backing up, and then the whole shebang.
Yeah.
So we're not too worried about this. Is there a way for Colorado to acquire a goaltender, wins them a cup next year? And I think at the end of this list, we're at Freddie Anderson, who I think is better than Grubauer, but I don't think he's so much better than Grubauer that you get weird about it.
Yeah, you're not.
Like you don't. If I'm making that deal. If I'm making that deal, I'm trying to make it straight up just to save Toronto $2 million. Because I think each of those guys are going into the last year of their deal. Mm-hmm. And
Freddie making significantly more.
Yeah, I think he makes about $2 million more. They're going into the last year of their deal, and then it's just like, okay, like we're kind of a shuffle of deck chairs with Grubauer and Anderson there.
Yep.
I'd be for it. Like if it happened, I wouldn't hate it. If they like gave up a bunch to get him, I would hate it.
Pretty bad, yeah.
But like that would be, it'd be okay. But I don't see Freddie Anderson as like
a significant upgrade.
Yeah. If it was like Anderson and a Francouz, and you were running Anderson and Grubauer, probably feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. Definitely.
You'd have to give up more, but depending on how much that costs, whatever. But that's not, I'm like, yeah, like I like Anderson. I think he's better, but I think he's better than Grubauer, but I don't think it's such a huge difference that you pay a premium for it, because at that point you're min-maxing your roster. And anybody who's ever played any kind of video game knows that you min-max slowly and efficiently. You don't give up a lot to
YOLO
min-max.
All in right away. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't give up a lot to min-max. It's not why you do that.
The only other guy I'm seeing on this list that's worth talking about is the Colorado kid himself, Benjamin Bishop.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, I've joked about it, like bring Bishop home.
And I mean, look, if you ignore the big problem of he plays for Dallas, and they're probably not going to want to move that guy to Colorado.
Yeah, I have a really hard time believing that Dallas is like, okay, so if we play them in the postseason next year, but you replace Michael Hutchinson with Ben Bishop, we really like our chances.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Just have a hard time feeling like GM of the Year finalist Jim Nill would be comfortable with that.
Yeah,
even if the Avs were like, here, have a bundle of picks and prospects, I'm not sure that he'd be down with that.
I don't think he would either, but a curious type of guy, someone who's very established, consistently puts in quality work as a goaltender, would certainly be an upgrade on Grubauer, with a big caveat of health.
Yeah, I've said multiple times, I think he's one of maybe the most underrated goalie of the last decade. That Ben Bishop's had like a very solid career, and it seems like people just want to write off any success he has by being like, oh, he plays behind a good Tampa Bay team, or oh, he plays in a defensive system in Dallas, and it's just like the guy's just been good like everywhere he's been.
Yeah, hard to argue.
Just injuries have been a legit issue. He's clearly still hurt. He was most definitely hurt when he went into
blew him up, man.
Yeah, game 5 against Colorado. He was not ready to play. So, I think that's more of like a fun, like, bring Ben Bishop home than it is like a real talking point.
So
it wouldn't really make sense for Colorado to just like turn the goaltending job over to him after all the injuries and everything, and it wouldn't make sense for Dallas to be like, here, let's fix your arguably like one of your biggest holes on the roster. Like, let's do that. And yeah, we already covered Murray in the first segment. We said no.
The short version is don't bother.
Yeah, don't even bother. It's just not worth it.
And I think that's kind of the conclusion that we're coming to in a lot of cases here. There are a select few guys that are interesting to the Avs at this position.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Anaheim was willing to listen and you don't have to give up Newhook or Byram,
you pay a pretty hefty price maybe there, yeah.
Like, sure, you could have us, you could interest me in that conversation, of course. I've advocated for it a million times already, but I mean, if they're not interested, then there's not really any point. So I don't understand the obsession with Ryan Reeves. Vegas had him and they just lost. What good did he do?
He got himself ejected from that one game.
So yeah, I think the most reasonable solution here is to stay put on goaltenders and just hope you have better injury luck.
Yep, run it back.
It's funny that it's like, oh, well, for the second time in 3 years, the Avs are on a third goaltender. But it's like, look, the reality is that they were different goalies. If it was the same tandem that had gotten hurt for the second time in 3 years, it might be an argument I'd be willing to listen to more. But the first time around was Varley and Bernier. In what way is that an indictment on Philip Grubauer? So, Grubauer had a couple of injuries this season, definitely, but he doesn't. It's not like he has
the built-up history of it yet.
Yeah, it's not like there's this long history, and I just
he was fine in the previous year's playoffs. He played through all of that just fine.
Yeah, he was completely fine. Like, Grubauer was completely fine. So I'm willing to just bet on better health. Honestly, I'm just bet on better health and you're good. And
it's not even like we're not talking about insanely better health. We're talking about not having to play your third string goaltender for almost half of the second round.
Right. Right.
So,
I mean, it really was almost half because he played the last 3 games and he played the final 10 minutes of the third period.
Exactly. So, it marginally better health, and the Avs could have potentially made the conference finals this year. Don't have to go down that path, but
I mean, it just is what it is. Like, they were even with that. They almost made it anyway. They were one implosion away from making the finals anyway.
Yep.
I mean, you had a 1-goal lead with 3:40 left in the third period. Like, we don't need to sit here and act like the team needs a major overhaul. They don't. They just don't. It's not something that needs to happen. So this is it's really, if they can find a move that makes sense, it's cost efficient and it's a clear-cut upgrade, totally. Otherwise, this tandem's biggest problem in the postseason was that its health failed in the second round.
Okay. I don't even disagree with you. I can't, disagree with you. I think this team is probably capable of winning a Stanley Cup as is. But a move like a Robin Lehner, a move like a Taylor Hall, a move like an Alex Pietrangelo gives them more wiggle room.
Right. Ryan Reeves has been part of playoff teams.
Ryan Reeves had 4
they've lost
and 0 goals in 19 playoff games this year.
Like this obsession, because this happens. Caleb comes in here every single show and mentions the same exact thing. Go get Reeves and Fleury. We talked about why Fleury's not going to happen. Reeves is just like, look, like Reeves. I would take 3 Will Carriers before 1 Ryan Reeves.
Who do you replace on the roster for Ryan Reeves? I'm certainly not. Yeah, but that really means you're replacing Martin Kaut.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not playing Ryan Reeves over Martin Kaut.
Right.
So.
And now he's overpaid.
The Avs don't need experience. The Avs have Andrei Burakovsky, won a Stanley Cup. Philip Grubauer, won a Stanley Cup. Jonas Donskoy, been to a Cup Finals. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, been to a Cup Finals.
Well, question. Just this is just me being curious here, and totally want to open this up to chat as well. How much experience is like enough for a player to be considered like seasoned in the postseason?
Because, in my opinion, pretty much everyone on the Avs roster after 2 consecutive years of making Game 7 of Round 2 should be experienced.
Well, because Cale Makar has, this is an insane statistic, but Cale Makar has 57 regular season games played and 25 playoff games. like what's considered like I can understand where a team goes out in the first round, like they've got 5 games of playoff experience and all of them like that's not what you're talking about in terms of like, oh, this guy's got playoff experience, right? Like I'm curious, like, does a guy have to have won a cup for him to be considered experienced?
I mean, even then, Jacob says Stanley Cup experience. Belly, Berkey, Cole, Grubauer was there even if he didn't play. And then Jonas Donskoy as well. You're talking about 25% of a 20-man roster on any given night for the Avs having Stanley Cup Finals experience. That's a pretty significant amount.
Yeah, and this year, I think the only like regular that they had that was making his playoff debut was Graves.
Yep, because Graves didn't play
the
previous season, but all the other one.
Like, what's the difference between 1 conference finals appearance and 2 second round appearances? Because I'm asking because like I was actually going through some of these the other day. And was like, wow, I didn't realize, like, Gabe Landeskog's played 39 playoff games.
Yeah, they've played a lot. This McKinnon and Landeskog because of that 13-14 year as well. There's experience on this team now. It's not like, oh, my God, this dude has 100 playoff games or whatever, but it's way more than enough. Well, these guys know what they're doing. They're not wide-eyed in the playoffs anymore.
Right, like Landeskog 39, you're right at half of a regular season worth of experience in terms of the postseason. Like, again, like this isn't, you're not talking about these guys who are like, oh, these guys are ultra battle tested, right? Like this isn't like the Sharks going to the playoffs 9 years in a row or whatever. But it's like at some point, like these guys they've now won a playoff series in back-to-back years. All of them are nearing like the 40-ish, the 30-40 playoff game threshold, like minimum. Like some of these guys have way more than that already.
They've played in multiple Game 7s. They've played in multiple playoff overtimes in which they've won and lost games.
Yeah.
They've had just about every experience you can get other than directly playing with the Stanley Cup on the line.
Yeah.
And some of them have even done that. So
I just think it's interesting. Well, and like they've now lost like 2 sometimes you learn more from losing than from winning.
Yep.
And you obviously would like to win, but it's not. The Avs haven't gotten blown out in any of the series that they've lost. They've made the postseason 3 years, and they've been involved in every one of those series. They haven't gotten blown out. It'll be interesting to see what they learn from this season, because, obviously different sports. Look at the Nuggets last night. What was one of the big reasons why the Nuggets got through that series against the Clippers? Part of it is that they were battle tested. They've lived through tough moments. They've taken their lumps, and they learned how to handle that environment. And I would say that the Avs have the requisite experience to do something similar in the future. Like, I don't see there being a huge difference between round 2 and round 3 in terms of you've won it and you've done it. Like, especially until you're playing for the cup, it's like rounds 1 through 3 are just like you're trying to get there. You're just trying to get there.
And you're talking about, this is a team who both of the last 2 years won their round 1 and 5, and then took round 2 to game 7.
Yeah.
So it's not like, they cruised through a series and then got bodied in round 2. They were right there. Mm-hmm. They had more games played after their second round elimination than teams in the conference finals had.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know we kind of like ditched the goaltender conversation.
That's fine.
But we had said what we needed to say, and I thought that chat was bringing up an interesting conversation about let's go get experience, and I'm just curious about like the perception of when does this Avs team become battle tested? Because you look at Mikko Rantanen has 33 playoff games. Like, again, it's not like a billion games or anything. You're not looking at like Joe Sakic finished his career with like 200 playoff games played. Like the guy was there all the time, and they won a bunch of rounds. So it's not that level, but like this is where it starts. This is how you become battle tested. Is you go to battle. Right? Like,
yep.
You have to, and you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And it sucks. It sucks that it went this way this year. It's going to always feel like a huge what if and a massive, like, who knows, right?
Of course.
Because the last 2 years for me, it just felt like, it felt like they had kind of hit their wall, like their ceiling. Like they got into the first round, they went up against Nashville, they were competitive, but damn.
All right. Here's a stat for you.
Hit me.
From the 2013 NHL draft, who is the most experienced player in the playoffs?
Is it someone in the first round?
Yes.
Is it someone in the top 10?
No.
I don't know that draft as well.
It's Andrei Burakovsky.
Oh.
71 playoff games. Nathan MacKinnon with 40 is in 4th. Only Burakovsky, Theodore, and Jake Gensel have more playoff games from that draft than Nathan MacKinnon. How do you... He's top 5 in his draft class in playoff games. How do you get more battle tested than that? I don't know.
You go to more battles. You win more rounds. You have more games played. You do it year in, year out. Like Berkey got to do it the entire time that he was in Washington. So making the playoffs was just a thing he did.
Yeah.
And that's part of the difference with a guy like Landeskog, where the beginning of his career, he went to the playoffs one time in the first, 6 years.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he's in it 3 years in a row. Like, he had to learn. That one 7-game series, that one time in that several year span, however many years it was, like, you got to learn. Even
with that span from Landeskog, he's top 20 in the 2011 draft class for playoff games. The Avs have got a lot of experience over the last 3 years. They just have.
I would be curious to see where the Avs stack up, where Avs players stack up in postseason games in the last 3 years.
We can do that. Obviously, going to be incomplete data from this year, but.
Well, and like some of those guys will have been with Colorado and some will not have been, but it's like this was not an inexperienced team. I don't think that inexperience was their problem. I don't think that.
So last 3 years, the leader is David Perron with 50 games.
Oh, because he went to the Cup Finals twice.
Yep.
Yeah, because he went with Vegas their first year, then went back to St. Louis and won the Cup.
The Avs don't have anyone in the top 50.
Okay, I'm not surprised about that.
You're Tampa Bay, ton of people. Washington, a ton of people.
Yeah. Teams that have won multiple rounds in multiple years.
St. Louis has got some people. Boston has some people.
So all of the like top teams in the league.
Yep. But the Avs do have pretty much their entire roster around the 60 to 75 area.
Okay.
So it adds up. You're talking about them as a top 8 team when it comes to playoff experience.
In the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting there. They're building.
Yep.
All of this to say, I don't think they need to be targeting guys for experience anymore. They've got enough in their own room.
Yep.
I think they've got enough in their own room now that they don't have to go and get a guy like Ian Cole just to say and have like the top billing of his signing be, well, he's won a cup before.
Champion, yeah.
Therefore, it's useful to have him around because he knows how to do it. He's been through it. He knows how to lead and he knows how to like, okay, well, as you said, like 25% of the Avs roster at this point has been in a cup final somewhere in their career.
Yep.
They don't need to continue to chase that. Go get talent.
I'd be
Go
curious.
get Taylor Hall.
Yeah, go get Taylor Hall. There. Show's over. That's the end of it. Go get
that. You should end every show with go get Taylor Hall.
Well, we are going to wrap up the show. Do have one more for you. Of course, Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD-infused coffee that has really changed lives. You can get it cold brew down at the DNVR bar if you want to give it a try before you buy. And when you do purchase, use code DNVR20 to get 20% off your entire purchase. If you want to buy it in bulk, sign up for their subscription and get 20% off every single time. You can do that online at StravaCraftCoffee.com as well. Been known to help a ton of stuff: migraines, aches and pains, IBS, joint pain, all sorts of stuff. Give it a try today if you haven't yet. That's going to close up what was a goalie show that spiraled off the rails into an experience podcast instead. But that's why we have you here, chat. We love you. If you want to talk about stuff, that's what we're here to do. We want to talk about stuff you guys want to talk about. So,
yeah, tomorrow we're going to have a guest on to talk about the WHL. We're going to talk about Avs WHL prospects plus WHL draft prospects, of which there are many, and of which many will be of interest to the Avs at pick 24.
How disappointed should I be when Goalie and Schneider are gone?
I mean, I think you and I are both expecting that. So,
yeah, we are.
We're gonna have Joel Henderson on the show tomorrow to talk about it with us.
Looking forward to it. Until next time. We will talk to you guys again tomorrow.